If sexual intercourse takes place and the egg is fertilised, then the lining of the uterus stays intact. It doesn't break down. The blood supply to the lining increases, ready for a fertilised egg. Fertilisation is the stage of reproduction that we're going to look at next. If intercourse takes place, fertilisation may occur. The sperm released from the penis swim along the fallopian tube. There they may meet an egg. So fertilisation is when one single sperm fuses with the larger egg. Fertilisation is the point where one sperm embeds into the large egg and successfully fuses. Now the uterus wall remains intact and the fertilised egg cell starts dividing and embeds itself into the uterus lining. For your test, it's really important that you know the order of events in reproduction well. So the sequence of events goes like this: ovulation, and then, if intercourse occurs, fertilisation. That's the fusion of the sperm and egg taking place. Then cell division to form a ball of cells, and after that, implantation into the thickened uterus lining. Let's look more closely at what happens after fertilisation has occurred.
And we find the embryo, focus on it, set the video recorder going so that we have one shot every 2 seconds, and we leave the embryo there for about a week. What you start off with is a fertilised egg, which is a large cell, and this cell will divide about once every day initially. And these cells carry on dividing until there are about 8 or 16 cells about 3 days after the one cell stage. And then finally it gets to the stage where it wants to hatch out of the jelly coating that has been protecting it during earlier development, and then it's ready to implant in the lining of the womb.
We're going to move on to look at how the growing fetus develops and the importance of the placenta. After about 9 weeks, the limbs are visible and the embryo becomes a fetus.
The heart needs to be powerful enough to pump blood not only round the embryo's body, but out to the lining of the womb. This particular blood vessel extends from the embryo to a remarkable structure, the yolk sac. Although there's no yolk inside, the embryos of other animals from which we have evolved are nourished by food stored in the yolk sac. Human embryos, however, obtain their food by way of the placenta. Blood vessels from the embryo spread out across the lining of the womb. Here, the placenta develops to provide the interchange of food, oxygen, and other substances between the mother's blood and that of her growing baby. The arteries and veins join to form the major vessels of the umbilical cord, the lifeline between mother and baby.
The placenta brings the fetal blood into close contact with the mother's blood, but the two don't mix. The blood passes to the fetus via the umbilical cord. The placenta also acts as a barrier to some harmful substances, such as pathogens and some drugs. What important role does the placenta play? That's an interesting one. The placenta grows and develops alongside the fetus, but what's its special job? There are 2 main points. Why not stop the tape and jot them down, or if you prefer, you can move straight on to the answer. So, what important role does the placenta play? Your answer should include 2 points. 1. The placenta acts as an exchange place for oxygen and food and waste products. And your second point should mention that the placenta protects the growing fetus and acts as a barrier to some harmful substances and microorganisms. This brings us to the end of reproduction, but before we leave these 2 sections, make sure you're familiar with all the key points. If you're not sure, you could rewind the tape and go through them again. Don't forget the book and the website. And now here are a few top tips that might help you as well.
A good tip for when you're trying to learn the systems in the human body is to pick one system per week. Learn it again, and then attempt to explain how, for example, the digestive system works to your mum or your baby brother. If they understand it, maybe you do.